Welcome to Law Officer Live. It is May 17th, 2017. It's unbelievable how quick time is flying by. We are so thankful for all of you out there that are watching. We're thankful for our law enforcement officers and our first responders out there working the streets right now. We're thankful to the public that are supporting us so much, and this is a special week for all of us. It's National Police Memorial Week in Washington, D.C. President John F. Kennedy in 1962 did a proclamation that is every year that May 15th is National Police Day. So the week of May 15th, every year, there are ceremonies and celebrations all across this land that honors the fallen police officers. And so Washington, D.C. did that as well. And we've got some guests on later on the day that were in Washington, D.C. This week, some guests that have been in Washington, D.C. this week, and we have a police survivor who will tell us why it means so much to honor our fallen, not only every week, the week of May 15th every year, but every day of the year. And so we're so thankful that you're here with us today. It's very important that you spread this show around. We're the only law enforcement related TV show for law enforcement by law enforcement, and there's a narrative out there that is just not getting out there, which is the truth coming from law enforcement on what actually happens in law enforcement. So we want to put that context on things, and we want to spread that message far and wide. So we're going to ask you right now to hit the share button on Facebook or hit that link and share it on YouTube. Maybe you've caught this show after it was live. We're live every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And if you caught us after it was live, share it anyway. Spread the message. We want as many people watching this as possible. You're going to hear later from GovX, and it's a wonderful new partner that we've got here at lawofficer.com. And GovX is a great website that gives first responders and law enforcement in particular great discounts on products. It's an incredible, incredible resource. And you can find out more at govx.com. We've got a partnership with them that I think is going to be incredible. I can tell you right now, I'm a member myself. I've saved a ton of money, and you will save a ton of money. There's hundreds of companies they partner with. There's thousands of products, and they literally have saved law enforcement officers millions of dollars. So go check out GovX. They're the exclusive sponsor of today's episode, and we're so proud and humble to have them. Now, if you've been paying attention to what we do each week, you know we're in the middle of a series of videos called the Traci Grimes Story. Last week, if you missed us, you got to go back and watch it. You can find us there, of course, lawofficer.com. Hit the Law Officer TV button at the top, and you'll find that episode. We watched the first episode of the Traci Grimes story. So you got to watch that episode. But even if you didn't watch it, you're going to be able to watch the second episode right now. It's an incredible, incredible story of what happens to us in law enforcement when leadership is weak and leadership is cowardly. What we need in law enforcement is courageous leaders, and we're so proud and honored that out of some of the tragedy that happened with Traci Grimes and his family, that we are being able to teach and help others do a better job and to treat our officers better. So without further ado, here's the Traci Grimes story, part 2.
Strong that my employees that were involved in that night, as well as myself, had made really good decisions. I thought this thing went perfectly smooth. Woke up next morning and it just took off. 5 white officers involved in a shooting of a black college student in a major college, and it just exploded. There was a lot of attention on this thing that the media and they were really harping on the race issue, and they were harping on him being a student. And what I did not know is that this individual had polio as a child. So now I want you to back up and look at this from the perspective of a student that he taught in class. He was 36 years old. He periodically used a cane to walk around on. The use of that cane was obvious to a lot of people. He walked funny, which obviously that night we didn't pick up on a short amount of distance. He had been obtaining mental health support through the college, and he was receiving a lot of medication for various reasons from the university. And this individual happened to be their #1 concern. He'd been having trouble at work with the office. Some office staff was scared of him. He was making comments that was concerning him. So there's a lot of issues going on here. So the night we engaged him, the perception from the student population and from the administration is the pipe that he had in his hand with the screw sticking out of it was his cane. So that became the focus of the story is, oh my gosh, they shot a person with polio who's carrying a cane. And that's what they shot him in his own house. So this became this big story, which was so far from the truth, but that's what the story was. And the protesters just fed off of the fact that who he was and what had happened to him. And they had no idea that he was highly intoxicated that night, that he was under the influence of various medications, that he had armed himself with a metal pole with a screw sticking out and was in possession of a very large butcher knife. They didn't know any of that. And none of that ever got put out there. None of that was ever fed to them to prevent them from protesting. And very early on, I started seeing what I have learned to call the art of self-preservation. I started seeing people involved in this situation start backing up from accountability issues. The college obviously felt the stress of the direction that the media was taking this and the fact that the protesters were feeding off of the media. And the college started panicking. And so they told the police agency, hey, we're going to start handling media responsibilities. We're going to hire an attorney to defend us. We're going to handle this at our level. Now, we're talking about college administrators that have no idea what a law enforcement tactical situation is. They're going to take over responsibility. And that was fueled because the protesters were reacting off what they were being fed through the media, and they just pushed and they pushed and they pushed until the fear was the college had to take action. Instead of the college standing up and saying, look, we had an individual that was armed, that was under the influence of stuff, that did not react to a less lethal option, that was ultimately shot. We put the blame on him. They didn't do that. So they had to find some route to pacify the protesters. And what was that? Of course, like we do throughout this country, get rid of the police officer that caused the problem. Get rid of the officer and that will squelch that issue. That will chill them down, they'll settle down and we can move forward. And that's exactly what happened. The agency did their investigation. The state agency came and investigated the shooting and cleared us. It was very, very supportive of the decision to shoot and the way the situation went down. But then after the whole investigation was over, I was granted access to look at the crime scene. Laying on the ground were cartridges from tasers, beanbag rounds that had been expended out of a 12-gauge shotgun. Laying on the ground was a very large butcher knife. There was no cane to be found that was such a big concern. The crime scene revealed additional things, including a garbage can full of beer cans and empty vodka bottles. What is generally my cabinet in my house in the kitchen that holds my plates is full of empty pharmaceutical bags that are all with the various colors of the college on them, as well as there's over 100 empty medication bottles in there that were issued to him by this college. The individual's mental health status, his under the influence of his narcotics and his alcohol was so prevalent in that scene, including the fact that we had used all these less lethal responses that he was not affected by that ultimately led to us shooting him. The focus became, at least from an administrative standpoint, they said to me, somebody's going to have to fall for this. And I remember looking at my chief thinking, somebody's going to fall for this? Nobody did anything wrong. Why would somebody fall for this? There was never a formal complaint filed on the 5 of us by anybody directly involved in this case. The shooter didn't file a complaint. The dean didn't file a complaint. So because none of those individuals filed a complaint, they started internal affairs without the complaint. And in the state of Florida, you're allowed to know who your complainant is and what the complaint is before an internal affairs can start. So what the department did is they directed a captain to file a formal complaint for excessive use of force. And ultimately, the complaint on excessive use of force was never sustained. They didn't find any issue with excessive use of force. They didn't find any issues with entry into his facility, his home being unlawful. They didn't find any issues with the actual shooting. So the protesters protested for many months throughout this process. And when the state attorney came out with their findings, they really started protesting more. They were frustrated that no charges were going to be filed against the young man who pulled the trigger as well as any of us. But the day that they held a press conference, and the day that they stuck my photo out there, and the day they said that the lieutenant's contract was going to be non-renewed, or ultimately he was going to be fired for the decisions made that night, the protesting stopped because I think they felt like they got their person.
We're here with Aaron Palander with GovX, and we are so honored and humbled to have GovX as a partner here at lawofficer.com. Aaron, how are you doing today, sir?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on here, Travis.
Now, Aaron, for someone in our audience that isn't familiar with what GovX is, tell us a little bit about the history of GovX and what you provide to law enforcement and all first responders.
Sure thing. Yeah, so GovX is an online retail shopping website. We started in 2011, and the goal was pretty simple. We wanted to provide great prices on the gear that people use in the military, law enforcement, firefighting, first responder community, both for their jobs, and we also wanted to provide them with great deals on things they use in their everyday life. So now in our 7th year, we're working with over 300 brands, as well as professional sports teams, entertainers, travel partners, and we negotiate with these companies to get the best prices possible on the things that they sell. We have about, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Aaron.
We have about 2.2 million members. 250,000 or so of those are in the law enforcement community. It's free to be a member. You just have to go through a short, easy verification step, and there's a few ways to do that. And we continue to grow, and the law enforcement community has been really supportive of what we're trying to do, and we feel that this is an audience that deserves the best prices possible on on-duty gear and off-duty gear, and that's what we try to do every day.
Well, you're doing an incredible job, and I can speak from experience, Aaron, that I've signed up, I don't know, a few months ago, and it was an easy process, just like you said. It's an easy process to sign up, registration. In fact, I don't even think I had to upload a commission card because you want to confirm that people are actually first responders. I think given my city email actually was a confirmation, so it was literally a few minute process, and immediately I got upset because what you said about the best prices are exactly right. My wife had gotten me a fancy Phoenix watch just a few weeks before I had signed up, and I found out that I would have saved almost $100 on your website. I immediately started looking at some sports tickets, and you're right. The deals that are on there are just unbelievable, and I just got to ask you, there must be a lot of work behind the scenes making sure you're getting the best prices for our first responders.
Yeah, so we work really hard to negotiate with the brands, but it's important to point out that these brands that have been coming on board with us for the last 7 years, they really believe in this community that we're trying to serve. They think that that our current and former military, our police officers, our firefighters that are out protecting our communities and our country every day, that they deserve something special. So we work with them daily to make sure that we're fulfilling that promise. It's a daily battle to make sure that we're doing everything we possibly can. But having the support of the 300 plus brands, the teams, it's been really fun and encouraging for us to see just kind of the support that's grown as GovX has grown. So I'm glad to hear that you had a good experience with us, and that's what we're aiming for all of our members.
Man, it's unbelievable stuff. I know this week is Police Week, and we certainly are appreciative of you being the exclusive sponsor of tonight's episode of Law Officer Live. May 15th, the week of May 15th, every year is National Police Memorial Week. And just kind of tell us from your experience and what GovX stands for, and we know it stands for some incredible giving back to our law enforcement officers. What does Police Week mean to you there at GovX?
Yeah, so for us, Police Week is an important moment to reflect on those who have been lost in the line of duty, and also to appreciate those who are still out there every day. And you mentioned one thing: every month, a portion of our orders go towards a nonprofit that works in the first responder or military community. And one of the first organizations that we supported when we started this program was the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund, who's the primary kind of organization behind the National Police Week that's happening right now in D.C. And so we've developed a relationship with them as well as other nonprofits doing similar activities. And for us, we want to do everything we can to support these communities. It's not just about selling products for us. We want GovX to be a company that kind of walks the talk and does more than just be another retail site. So Police Week, it's 1 week out of the year where we can make sure that we're doing something extra to say thanks, but that's something that we try to do throughout the year. This week particularly, we have some, on the retail side, just to be a commercial for a second, we have some really incredible sales going on. Tomorrow, for example, Oakley, which is one of our main brands for our law enforcement members, they'll be having really steep discounts for the next 48 hours. Casio, like G-Shock watches, they'll also be starting tomorrow. So we're doing these kind of 48-hour sales all throughout the month. We've got hundreds of brands that are participating, and in a small way, that's something that we're trying to do to say, thanks, especially during this week.
It's very much appreciated, and you're right. Craig Floyd, they're at the National Law Enforcement Memorial, good friends of ours, and they're doing wonderful things there in D.C. And the support that you're providing is incredible. And all those brands you just mentioned, from Oakley to Casio, those are all obviously very popular brands in law enforcement. And what I want to tell our audience is when you sign up at GovX, you're going to get notified about these type of sales. I'm getting notified today. I was sent an email about sales coming up, and it really kind of helps you out. And obviously, we want people to go to our website, lawofficer.com, and you'll see the GovX banners, you'll see the GovX logos, and you can sign up through our website. But you could also just go straight to govx.com and tell us a little bit about that process, Aaron, how that goes.
Yeah, so govx.com, govx.com, that's the website. You'll be asked to start creating an account. It's simple as entering an email address, selecting what your branch of service is. I want to reiterate that it's for current people serving currently, but also for former. And then once you're logged in and have an account, you can actually add your spouse as well. So the process, like you mentioned, there's a few different ways to go through the verification. Your city email, that's one way to go through it. You can do a document upload. You can even give us a call and answer some questions that we have about your service. So it takes a matter of minutes, and once you have your approved account, you log in with your email and your password, and you have access to the brands and teams and entertainers that we work with.
Man, that's good stuff. Lawofficer.com, click on the banner, or you can go straight to govx.com. I cannot emphasize enough how much GovX is doing for our community and law enforcement and other first responder communities. Aaron, thank you so much for what you're doing. Thank you for all the things you specifically are doing this week during this very somber police week. We can't thank you enough over there at GovX.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
Hundreds of companies, thousands of products, and millions of dollars in savings. Check them out at govx.com. That was Aaron Palander. We can't thank him enough. Thank you.
GovX, the largest website for military and government discounts, dedicated to current and former military, law enforcement, fire, and first responders. You take on the toughest jobs. You face the biggest risks, and you're always there when we need you. At GovX, we want you to enjoy your life after work. That's why over 100 premium brands are here to offer you cutting-edge products at exceptional prices. GovX, offering military and government employees the best savings on the web.
I'm here with Steve Dixon. He's the assistant coordinator of his department's Honor Guard. And Steve, thanks for being here with us on Law Officer Live.
My pleasure.
Now, tell us, before we get into your Honor Guard work, and I know you were in Washington, D.C. this week for Police Week, but before we get into that, tell us why you went into law enforcement.
Duty to serve. My father was a veteran, Vietnam veteran. My brother served in the Army. It's kind of, my way of paying back.
Right. Now, I know you have kids. You have some kids in college, I believe. And there's been a lot of talk out there about, do we still have a generation of kids that want to serve? Like, you had that duty to serve. You came from that, your father was in Vietnam. I'm the same way my father was in Vietnam. And I very much grew up in a household where serving the community in any capacity was seen as a good thing. Do you still see that in today's generation of our teenagers and our kids coming up?
I think there are some. I think there's more than the media portrays, and there's more than we see. But there are some out there. I mean, they're still getting people signing up for police departments. Not as many, but it's still, there are some that have that duty to serve.
Well, I know your Honor Guard work is part-time work. Full-time, you're on the streets, and obviously our prayers are with you. It's definitely a different time of day. You've been a veteran for almost 20 years in law enforcement. Most of those years all on the streets, responding to calls. Congratulations. Not a lot of people can say that's an accomplishment. It is a huge accomplishment, because I tell people this, that being a street cop today in America is like dog years, man. Like 1 year of a street cop is like 10 years in another profession. So you've done it for almost 20 years. How have you been able to do that? And man, you are still smiling. You're in good shape. You're great to be around. What's the secret to our audience out there?
I did earn these gray hairs. Man, I try to keep everything positive, you know. And I do work some jobs, extra jobs, where, you know, people come up and say thank you.
Yeah.
Drower Stadium. You know, people come up and say thank
That's
you.
the Dodgers AA team, for those of you
Absolutely.
that were wondering. Los Angeles Dodgers, the greatest baseball team on the planet. Okay, go ahead, sorry.
And, you know, just try to stay positive. I involve myself in positive things. You know, I do work out.
I was just noticing that earlier.
Probably more than not more. I probably should do more. You know, just try to keep a positive outlook on life. I mean, this job can bring you down, because you see the worst of society.
Right.
You see the worst the people can do to another person, and you just have to look at a way to channel it.
Well, attitude's everything, is it not?
Absolutely.
And I've known you for many years, and you've always had a great attitude and a great outlook, and I think it's hopefully going to serve you well in the future. I know you're wanting to do this job for a lot longer, so
Absolutely.
Congratulations on all you've done so far. So at some point, Steve, you wanted to get involved in the Honor Guard. And of course, explain to our audience kind of what the Honor Guard is around the country and what your Honor Guard does, and you know, what you've done with the Honor Guard.
Well, first of all, it's probably one of the most rewarding things I've done on this department. What our Honor Guard does is we attend the local memorial services to honor our officers, our fallen officers for Tulsa. And then we attend the state memorial service and the national memorial service.
Right.
But we also, any officer that's done 20 or more years on our department, we basically provide honors for their family. You know, I've started the Honor Guard in 2005, and it's kind of a weird thing I do. I guess I keep all the funeral announcements, the handouts they give at the funerals.
Break them out at parties.
Yeah, it wasn't. They were in my hat box.
Yeah.
And I mean, I looked at it the other day, and it's a stack. You know.
How does that wear on you emotionally? Because it's got to be emotional that you're not going to happy things, and obviously it's incredible what you and all the Honor Guard members out there do. This week's kind of the culmination of that in Washington D.C., honoring all of our fallen from 2016 and for all the years before that. But does it not take an emotional toll on you?
Well, absolutely. I mean, and that's sometimes you have to find your happy place. You know, especially when you're standing in front of the family.
As long as it's legal.
Yeah. And you just kind of channel your energy and you know, find your happy place.
Right.
I will say one thing that the Honor Guard you know, attends is the Special Olympics opening ceremony every year, and that's, you know, that's kind of when you get to see the happy moment. And the kids love seeing us there, and so that helps you.
So I love that you keep a balance. You know, you've got to, on the streets, you've got to go to do some bad things, but man, you try to be around positive people, whether it's your part-time jobs or whatever. And then same thing with the Honor Guard. You've got to go to some very depressing things, which is honorable that you're willing to do that. But you try to do some things that are also more positive. So that balance, I think, is important for everybody, is it not?
Well, and another thing is, you know, nobody in my family, but my wife's grandfather was a Korean War veteran, and seeing the VFW provide honors for his service, the gun salute and the folding flags, and you know, the pride that you feel, and I think that's what makes you get through these funerals. You know, knowing that the pride that family feels of seeing you pay honors to their loved one.
Right. Now, you just recently came back from Washington D.C. Obviously, the week every year, John F. Kennedy, 1962, named May 15th. National Police Memorial Day, and so every year the week that May 15th lands on, there are ceremonies in Washington D.C. and you go with the Honor Guard. How many times have you been?
This year would have been my 4th time.
So tell us about kind of the activities that you do when you go there and kind of what you see there. I believe I read there were 40,000 police officers there this year, so a lot of cops everywhere you go. What's the climate like in Washington D.C. during Police Week?
There are, you know, you do your regular touristy stuff, but there's days that you have to be somewhere.
Right.
And May 13th, we have the Candlelight Vigil, And in years past, it was held at the memorial site, but since they're building the police officer museum, they've moved it to the mall, which absolutely, you have more people you can fit in the mall area. And I don't know if you've seen the picture of the candlelight vigil this year. It's phenomenal. It's, I would guess multiple thousands of people there, and it's a pretty phenomenal picture of all the candles lit up. And then May 15th is Police Memorial Day, and they have honor guard competitions. We've never competed in that as our team, but it's pretty neat to see, to watch the other honor guards from around the country compete. And they have pipe and drum corps, and they go to different restaurants and bars and everything, and playing bagpipes and drum corps. It's really awesome sight, and it's funny because when we were talking to other people, you can ride the metro in D.C. and you say, well, there's a cop, there's a cop. You can kind of pick out all the cops in the crowd, and it's mainly probably outnumber the regular crowd on the metro.
I've been a couple times. I know many of our audiences have been. I heard from many of them this week, and we weren't able to go this year, but it is incredible. And anybody in law enforcement, whether you're in the honor guard or not, they have to go at least once, do they not?
Well, I encourage you, if you're, to go to the police memorial, but go to the police memorial during police week. I mean, with all the reflections and the stuff left at the memorial site, it's pretty awesome sight to see. Very sad. I mean, if it doesn't stir your soul, then you don't have one.
So I know you went to the Candlelight Vigil. You also saw President Trump speak at the Capitol. And just kind of tell us about that. We of course ran some stories on that at lawofficer.com. We know that he announced that he was going to light the White House up blue in honor of law enforcement that night. I know you saw that. The picture we put on our Facebook page, lawofficer.com, came from you.
And it was not Photoshopped.
Well, yeah, we had some people go, it's not that blue. I go, well, we actually put the photo up that wasn't Photoshopped. It's a real photo. And in person, of course, it looked blue. But anyway, we can't thank you enough for that. But tell us about being there, watching the President of the United States speak to you as law enforcement.
Well, not only the President, I would like to, I haven't researched this, but the first time that I know of that the President, Vice President, Director of Homeland Security, the Department of Transportation Secretary, and the Attorney General.
So like Nancy Pelosi was next in line if they were all there. This is bad for all of us.
They're all in the same spot.
Sorry, California. You picked her. Right?
But I will say I've never seen as many people at that part of the service than this year. We had VIP seating, and I think there was more people standing.
Wow.
Or as many people standing.
You think that was because of President Trump being there and speaking? I mean, that's the only thing that's changed, right?
Absolutely. I mean, they've added more. They added more names this year. They added some 9/11, post 9/11 illness names, but the atmosphere was, you could feel the support.
Right.
It was a different atmosphere than it has been in the past.
Unbelievable. Sure. You've been there under other presidents speaking. I believe President Obama, you've been there a few times, and so you've seen the elements of both presidents speaking. You've seen the crowd, you've seen the moods. Contrast to us the difference that you felt.
I definitely felt the support. He mentioned multiple times. If you see a police officer, say thank you. He spoke directly to the family. He even gave his hat to one of the survivors' children. It was, very positive, and he worked the crowd. He was very good, very good speaker.
Yeah, people will ask me, do you think the president is genuine about his support of law enforcement? Which I say, how could he not be? He spoke positively about law enforcement over the last few years when no politician was.
Well, when it wasn't the popular thing to do, for sure.
Right, and so he has kept doing that and kept doing that. I'll tell a quick personal story. I got a friend that works at Florida Airport where he's flown in for years, and this guy works security with all these celebrities that fly into this Florida airport. I think it's around his resort, but there's other celebrities. He said there's only one celebrity in his entire career that's ever called him by name and stopped and acknowledged him, and it was President Trump, way before he was president. So I think there is a true, genuine support from him. I think you're seeing that through his policies. Obviously, he's in a mosh pit out there in Washington, D.C. Everybody watching the news can see that. But when it comes down to supporting us, how important is it when he says, just think a cop? Or he tells you, because his comments were, you know, we are going to do everything we can to support you, to keep you safe, and to stop the violent criminal element. How important is that just coming from the president? Does it mean something?
It's very important. I mean, and also he's going to give us the tools we need to do our job,
Yeah.
instead of, you know, cutting them from us. You know, that's very important. Absolutely.
That's good stuff, Steve. Anything else you want to add about Washington, D.C.?
Phenomenal town.
Yeah.
I mean, I could spend several weeks there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Any particular monuments that really just kind of catch you? I know when I went, seeing where Lincoln was shot and seeing everything around that was just unbelievable, right?
Arlington Cemetery, you
Yeah.
know, hands down. I mean, hallowed grounds for sure.
Yeah.
You know, people that gave their life for we can live in the greatest country on earth.
Yeah.
So.
Steve Dixon, he's a great example of what a great attitude and a great work ethic can do. Successful career, Steve. We pray you have many years to come. Thank you for your service on the Honor Guard. Thank you for going to Washington, D.C. and coming back and reporting back to us exactly how Police Week was. We can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
As I look out today at this amazing assembly of police, detectives, marshals, and sheriffs, I want to make all of you remember and heed this promise. I will always support the incredible men and women of law enforcement as much as you have always supported me. The attacks on our police are a stain on the very fabric of our society, and you are entitled to leadership at the highest level that will draw a bright line in the sand, not a red line in the sand that isn't gone over, but a bright line in the sand, and we will protect you, that I can tell you, and we will say enough is enough.
Police Week is a powerful week for our next guest. Traci is a 39-year survivor. Her father was killed in the line of duty when she was a little girl. And Traci, as you watch that video that our audience just saw, how important is it for the leader of our country to be supportive of law enforcement?
Thank you for having me. I think it's huge. Obviously, I feel like the law enforcement community, it's just huge for them to know that the leader of the country is supporting them. I mean, they haven't had that in several years, and it brings probably a camaraderie that hasn't been around in several years, and it's huge, and I'm sure it's a huge relief also to know that.
I think it's hard for non-law enforcement people to understand that. You know, people think, well, it's the President Trump, he doesn't know you, he's just saying this for politics, this and that. But it does mean a lot, does it not? President Trump said that you need to thank a police officer. How important are those words?
It's so, like I said before, it's just a relief for them to know that somebody's got their back and is supporting them, and knows that if something happens, that I really feel like that he's there to support them, and that he is honest in what he says, that he'll back them.
You're a 39-year survivor, and I know what our audience is thinking, like, well, holy cow, you're older than 39, but you have memories of your father. You were a little girl when this occurred, this tragic event occurred. Kind of tell us about that incident and your memories about that.
I was really young when it happened, and I have not a lot of memories of my father, but a few memories of my father. He was actually stationed in internal affairs at the time with the Oklahoma Highway Patrol, and there was some escapees from the maximum security prison in town, and he was called out on a manhunt. And for several days they looked for these criminals and the escapees from the prison, and they ended up that particular day killing 3 troopers, and it was the darkest day in the Oklahoma Highway Patrol history.
Yeah, that's what they call it, a very horrific day. Anybody can go and look that up, and I know we have some writers working on some articles about this terrible incident that we need to remember, because there's learning lessons from that. But obviously you were young, your mother was in her 30s. You know, we're seeing this unfortunately to this day of families just being torn apart. And kind of tell us about, you know, growing up, you know, obviously you your father was killed, and how did that impact your life as a kid, as a teenager, and now as an adult?
It's had a huge impact. I mean, obviously, I've grown up without a father. None of my big events in my life, my father was there. And I am thankful and grateful for the few memories that I do have, because, you know, some kids are even younger than I was, but it's just, it's hard not having grown up without a father. I mean, even to this day, though it's been 39 years, I mean, I would love to be able to pick up the phone and call my dad, or my kids have obviously never met their grandfather, and I would, you know, that's something that I definitely miss.
You went to school and got a degree in criminal justice, and then you went into work in the criminal justice field as a victim witness advocate. Do you think that you were led into this line of work because of your father and being exposed to that as a young girl?
Yes, I really do. I felt like at the time that that I was working that as a victim advocate, that I was definitely called for that line of work. I just felt like I had a calling for victims of crime, and to just help them in any way that I could.
Pretty incredible stuff. And you know, and you then married a police officer, and you've been married for a couple of decades now. Did you think about, before you made that decision, about what happened to your mother and what happened to you as a little girl, and living your life through this tragedy? I mean, did that go through your mind?
Absolutely, yeah. There, obviously, when my dad passed away, it just, you know, I can't even to this day imagine what it would be like, especially as young as she was. I mean, no matter how old you are, losing your spouse, I mean, it's just devastating, and having to go through life and to raise a child without your spouse there is hard. Yeah. And so it's something that definitely crossed my mind, but I mean, it still does. I mean, I just can't imagine.
Well, you saw what most don't see. I mean, we all see the immediate aftermath of a line of duty death. You see the grieving widows or spouses and children at a funeral site. But you've lived it for 39 years. You've lived close to your mother and to your family for almost 4 decades. And so you've seen behind the scenes. You've seen the darker days. And is there any way to even explain to our audience what it actually means to families when a line of duty death occurs?
No, I can remember officers coming to our house right after it happened, and for, you know, several weeks after, and then, you know, all of that kind of
stops.
Yep, stops. And it's not that you don't still have the support, but, you know, it's just not, you know, life goes on for everybody, and you're kind of left life goes on with the absence of the person there.
Now, I know you've been to Police Week. This is Police Week in Washington, D.C. You've been to the ceremonies during this week. What is that? We've heard from Steve, who was there this week with the Honor Guard, but as a survivor, you were there. What did that mean to you when you were there?
It was just incredibly moving. I mean, to have the support, and just to know that the other people that are there know what you're going through, or as I was, having been years out from our tragedy, to be able to share our experiences and, you know, some of the stuff that we go through, it was just incredibly moving.
We're so thankful for all the organizations that put that on, including the National Law Enforcement Memorial and COPS, Concerns of Police Survivors. And Traci, I know you've been involved in the local chapter with COPS and the state chapter with the Concerns of Police Survivors, but tell our audience what COPS does and why it means so much to those left behind.
Well, Concerns of Police Survivors, they're an incredible support system for survivors. They put on camps throughout the year, and they put classes on during Police Week, and it's just an amazing, incredible organization. I still to this day, from our state chapter and from our national chapter, get a card every time this year, and it's just nice to know that you're still thought of.
Yeah, and what I want to tell our audience to do is find your local COPS chapter, send them a little donation. We're going to, on behalf of this show and you and your dad, Traci, we're going to send a donation to our local COPS chapter, because it means so much. And they're nonprofits that aren't all over TV. They're not sending you a bunch of stuff throughout the year trying to get money. They're small nonprofits that are helping real people that have had real loss, and we can't thank them for doing that enough.
Right, yes.
You've seen a lot of attacks in law enforcement. Obviously, it's been all over the news the last couple of years. All the attacks, not just physical violent attacks, but the ideological attacks. You know, we've talked about the war on cops here at lawofficer.com. Some people get all crazy about that, but the truth is, ambushes are up 60%, highest they've been in 20 years. Ideologically, the people that are verbally abusive, the people that are defiant, the people that are resisting law enforcement today is like we've never seen it before. What are your thoughts when you see all this going on?
It honestly scares me to death.
Yeah.
My husband is off the streets at the moment. I mean, obviously, at any time you can get called to work the streets, but his particular assignment right now is an inside job, and I'm thankful for that. But it's just so different when, I mean, just in the 20 years that
Then
we've
again,
been.
your father had an inside job.
Yeah.
And an
Yeah,
event
he
occurred,
did.
and he was called out.
Yeah, he was working IA. You would think that that was safe. He's just supposed to be working
So
internal affairs.
It never leaves your mind, probably,
No.
right?
No, it absolutely doesn't. I mean, it can happen at any time, anywhere.
Right.
I mean, he wasn't supposed to be on that assignment. My dad wasn't.
Well, it's tough. I think our entire audience is sort of feeling the weight of what you're saying, Traci. We can't thank you enough for being here. I know maybe we've had some people that's run across this show that are recent survivors. You're almost 40 years into this. You've seen probably everything a survivor could see. But if someone is tuned into this and maybe they've recently lost a father or a husband or a wife, what would you tell them?
Just stay close to your family and always keep. My mom was always very good, and my uncle was always very good about, who's my dad's brother, was always good about, you know, talking about my dad, about my mom would tell stories about his personality and things that he did on the job, and just keep that memory alive and just keep focusing on, you know, on them and their memory.
Traci, we can't thank you enough for being here, and Aaron with GovX and in a relationship with GovX, we can't thank you enough for honoring law enforcement during Police Week. We can't thank Steve, an Honor Guard member, for being in here telling us what the week has been like, and of course the President of the United States that spoke wonderful words, the video you just heard earlier, and then Traci, a survivor of almost 40 years, telling us what it really means and what Police Week really means to them. What an incredible week. We ask everybody out there that's on the streets or wears this badge, be careful. We thank you and the public that are supporting us. We thank President Trump for encouraging everybody to just thank a police officer that goes. It's tremendous help. We can't thank you for watching us here at Law Officer Live. Join us each week as we bring you more stories, just like you heard today, incredible stories of real people that are not only survivors, but are on the streets today doing a great, great job. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.